a course that is much needed, especially now that people are a little bit shy going out. This is a test. We're doing a hybrid event with live folks as well as Zoom room attendance. So while we're waiting for people to filter in, those of you in our Zoom channel, if you guys going to type in, what is it you want to take away from our training today? What is it you want to learn? If the next 2.5 to 3 hours that we spend together was worth all the hustle and bustle to sit in front of your Zoom room and come away with something useful, what might that be? What is it you want to learn? While you're doing that, I'm going to go with our live attendees and just ask the same thing. What's your name again? Anthony, what is it you want to take away from today? What's on your menu for today? To do what specifically?
Do we have the mics running for him?
Different ways
to the mic for him.
Okay. Okay. And how about you? What's your name?
There you
go. Patty, welcome.
There you go, Patty.
Hello.
And I know, Patty, you didn't want to appear on camera. I'm less notified, so we won't show your beautiful face.
Oh, no, I just wanted to know when they were going to play it on TV, so I what.
Oh, well, we'll see what we can do with that. Patty, what do you want to take away today? What do you want to learn?
Well, I want to learn how to flirt.
You want to learn how to flirt? All right. You don't know how to flirt? Why do I get the feeling I'm about to get played here? All right. All right. Learn how to flirt. It's interesting, you know, I like whenever I teach attraction, and I've been teaching it for a long, long time, and for many years, my demographic skewed primarily male, obviously, but as time went on, we started to get more and more of a balance between male and female attendees. And one of the things I evolved to was I never wanted to teach a class that was all male or all female. I always wanted to have a co-ed audience because I think it's really, really important that both genders, no pun intended, are exposed to how the other side perceives the things the messages that they're sending out. Because one of the things that happens is there's a massive, even though a lot of times men and women want the same things, they might want them in a slightly different order. And some of that comes to genetics and biology. Other parts of it come to terminology. They have different words for the same thing. And so by understanding the map, the romance map, or the attraction map, or the social interactiveness map of the other gender, it's easier to make the translation. Now, before we get any deeper into these concepts, let me be very upfront and very honest with you. Once you learn how to do these things, the onus, the task of doing something different falls on you. And the reason for that is because you're educated. You see, people who don't know any better can only run on their own program. By definition, they can't do anything different. And so you have to be the one to adapt and change. You have to be the one to translate what you're seeing back and forth. Now, in NLP, which is where a lot of this material that I originally started with came from or was filtered through, we have these concepts that are very, very important when we're dealing with human communication, social interaction. And the first one is the response of any communication is equal to the meaning of any communication is equal to the response it creates in the other person. So if I walk up to Patty and I say, "You look amazing today," and she looks at me and says, "You fascist, misogynist bastard, how dare you insult me like that?" Who's right?
How about I just say, thank you?
That's much better. But my point is that by definition, by the standards of NLP, the way we parse and understand communication, whatever definition she applies to my message is the correct one. Now that really infuriates a lot of people, right? But this is the thing you need to understand. Human beings don't have the same lexicon. They don't have the same interpretations and meanings to things. And so many times what you intend to send out isn't what people receive. And the most basic, if you guys are ever, how many people have ever been a little kid? You ever play that game Telephone or Telegram where you whisper a secret in somebody's ear over here and then they whisper it down and by the time you get to the back of the room, it's completely different? That's literally happening whenever I talk face to face. because there's so many filters in a person's nervous system and so many references that they're making that the meaning keeps changing every time it passes through a filter. Now, the good news is if you have the ability to see and perceive, you can, the person will give you clues as to whether they're moving towards or accepting your message the way you intended it, or something different's getting ready to come out, right? But that's training too, right? And so, Edward, what do you want to learn today?
Like more of the profit side of flirting.
Okay, more of the profit side, and I like that because let me explain to you a little bit about. Oh no, the name of the class is Flirting for Fun and Profit. Now, why would now it's a provocative title, but the question is, why did I name it that? And this is again the world according to David. So you can accept if the things I say to you mesh and seem to work for you, use them. If they don't, throw them out and find something that does. But one of the things I discovered for myself many, many years ago was that the template for all human social interactions actually evolves from what I call the mating dance, or the 1 + 1 = 3 scenario. Man plus woman equals baby. And that whole dating dynamic, that whole mating dynamic actually forms the archetype of many of our other interactions, and especially on a professional level. You think about a man and a woman coming together to create a family and a child. Think of two business people coming together to create a product or a business or a service, or two negotiators coming together to form an agreement. Many of the same parallels and principles and body language cues are at play. How many people have ever heard of something called social engineering? Okay, for those of you who don't know what social engineering is, you all know what a hacker is, right? Well, how do hackers get access to systems? One way is obviously through the hardware itself, in other words, hacking in. But the biggest hole, and any security company will tell you, the biggest hole in any corporation is the human element, the gatekeepers. And this is where social engineering, aka schmoozing and flirting and pretexting, come in. The more I can make somebody like me, the more comfortable I can make them feel around me, the more likely they are to give me a little bit more slack. The more slack they give me, the more likely they are to give me a little bit more, the better I make them feel, right? This is why you always send secretaries flowers, right? You always schmooze the gatekeepers. Why? Because they can make sure that your message gets in front of the right people. That's what they do. So if you're at a networking function, right, the same rules apply. Everybody's at a networking function trying to be memorable, trying to find the right person to do a deal with, or to bring in customers. If you understand how to make somebody feel good about themselves, they'll automatically feel good about you. Okay. Now, that's the first thing we're going to talk about. Is called the rule of friendship. This was a law called coined by FBI and counter-espionage agent by the name of Jack Schaefer. And it's really, really simple. People like people who make them feel good about themselves. Yes. The question is, what do you do about that? Become aware of it, and then I'm going to show you ways that in spite of themselves, people are going to find you irresistible. Okay? But this is the crux of everything that we're going to do. Now, in the context of actual romantic flirting, flirting is the promise, the feelings of attraction with the possibility that there might be a sexual encounter or romantic encounter on the end, but it's never a promise. The idea is you need to have a fun, playful energy. And this is where we're going to start in terms of learning how to make people feel good for no reason. So one of the things I want to share with you really quickly, let me see if I can find my list. There's a chart or a diagram I want to share. I got to figure out where I put it. Okay. This is called the Universal Persuasion Protocol. This is a template that you can insert into any social interaction. And it's literally this: first do this, then do this. You can take a picture of it, it's fine. Then do this, then do this, then do this. So it starts with knowing your outcome, knowing what you want to go for. So if we're gonna use flirting or the techniques of flirting or creative connection, charismatic connection to make somebody feel good about themselves, that has to be my outcome. When I create that, now remember, we're learning to think strategically. See, there's a lot of people out there that think things like romance and love and boyfriends and girlfriends and other friends, because we live in the age of weird pronouns and non-pronouns and things of that nature, right? And these techniques are applicable regardless of what your orientation is. One of the things that we have to do is we have to match a person's map of what they find attractive. Okay, we do that by first knowing the outcome. In other words, okay, I want to make this person feel really good about themselves so they'll feel good about me. How do I do that? How do I measure that? You have to learn to think in outcome oriented. So closing the loop I just opened. A lot of us think that these relationships, if they don't just happen, that they're not real. Okay, let's think about that for a moment. That's like saying, okay, I want to bake a cake. Here are all my ingredients. If it's meant to happen, it'll come out a cake. Right? That's what we're thinking though, because there's certain illusions and certain paradigms that we're solved with. One is the whole fated paradigm. They're fated of soulmates. Okay. The fact that you can engineer these things is actually really good if you can get that whole bugaboo that if I have to work for it, it's not real. Right? All relationships need work. I have a whole class called Soulmate Secrets, which is nothing about finding out what really is your romantic partner template. The whole crux of that course is about finding out who you are and what makes you happy and becoming that within yourself so that you're not running around looking for somebody else to do it for you. You need to become the partner that you want to attract. Right? So we're going to talk about templates and checklists very, very shortly. But one of the things we have to do is we're going to use their checklists and a lot of other neuro-linguistic and social psychological processes to create this phenomenon. But we need a way to measure it. We need to know what we want and how we know that we're getting it. Yes.
So wouldn't you say a person would really need to love themselves, like themselves, before they even go out and try to?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. Okay. One of the things in Soulmate Secrets, which is of course about, it's kind of like, it's on the spiritual romantic side of things, because a lot of people, they keep meeting the same person with a different face. And the reason that happens is because they have templates and woundings from childhood, from previous partners, from their parents and their parents' parents that are actually driving what they find attractive, not because it's attractive, but because it's familiar. And this is one of the things that we need to really understand if we want to start to generate attraction. There are many different ways to generate attraction. One of the most common ones is what we call the familiarity principle. How many times have you read a story about some rich Orange County person or sleeping with the milkman or the pool person, right? And maybe they're not even that cute, right? But they see them every single day. And what's been shown is that frequency increases attractivity. The more somebody, even if they don't, if on a scale of 1 to 10, you're a solid 5 or 6. If you show up every day for 6 months, it's going to climb up to a 7. It's going to climb up to an 8. It's the long term, but these are things that hack the nervous system, this whole frequency idea. Now, do we want to wait 6 months? Well, I don't know. But the idea is the more things become familiar, the more attractive they become. And that's the bugaboo when we're dealing with the human nervous system. The templates that are driving our romantic bus have been with us since the time we came out of the womb. Your human nervous system sorts for what's familiar, what was there first, okay? Your values are going to evolve from that, but there will always be this gravity towards what you grew up with or what was familiar growing up. Soulmate Secrets is about, okay, this is what I want, this is what I'm getting. How do I make that transition? What changes inside of me do I need to make to become that person? And what are the qualities in my partner, and how will I know that I'm getting it. And that brings us to something called the checklist. Okay, you see at the center of this diagram, let me just go through this real quick. So we talked about knowing your outcome, knowing what you want. Now, I have about 35 personal injury attorney clients who use the exact same stuff I'm teaching you to depose witnesses, to win, to do jury selection, to do negotiation and mediation. I literally have seen on video expert witnesses for my clients' opponents voluntarily trying to waive their attorney-client privilege to answer my students' questions because of these technologies. There's nothing here that's theoretical. The good news is it's 100% ethical, but it's only as ethical as the person using it. If you use the system the way it's taught, you never need to lie, cheat, steal, misrepresent, or confabulate in any way. Now, there are systems out there where truth is kind of a nice idea, right? But those are mostly for military and espionage applications, okay, right? This can be used for that, but it wasn't designed that way. It was designed to be on the right side of ethics and honesty and integrity. That being said, it does make use of some extremely powerful neurological processes and psychosocial processes. So I want you to understand it's fun and it's free, and I want you to take this out and use it. Some of this stuff you're gonna hear me say it, and you're gonna go, you're full of shit. Best part is you don't have to believe anything I'm telling you. Just use it, right? And you'll find that all of your relationships will change, even ones you've had for years. Okay. So the first thing is know your outcome, know what you want, know how you're getting it. The next is control your state. Now, this is my good friend here is a Qigong person. And one of the things that we talk about in the Qigong world is you have these three bodies, right? You have your soul, your eternal soul, then you have your physical body, right? And you have your energy body, then you have your spirit body. Your physiology controls your psychology. So anything that changes what happens in your body changes what happens in your mind, which takes it from the physical form to the energy form to the spiritual form. That's where they all meet, right?
You said that so fast. People need to hear that.
Which part?
Your psychology.
Okay, your physiology controls your psychology, right? I've been saying this for decades, so it is. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is we want to move through the world making everyone we meet feel ridiculously good about us. Okay. Now here's the corollary to physiology controls the psychology. The fastest way to change anybody's body feelings is to change yours first. Fastest, most reliable way to change your feelings is by changing your posture and your breathing. Come on in, don't be bashful, right? You look familiar. Have you been to my meetups before? Yes, I remember.
Do you have
All right. What's your name again? Cynthia, welcome. Let me go back to menu for today. And I love questions, so don't be bashful. But I will warn you, the more questions I get asked, the more rabbit holes I tend to go down. So, Cindy, what do you want to learn today? What do you want to take away from today's class? A new man. Why not? Sorry, I had an old cartoon moment. All right. Did nothing in particular, or just? Okay. All right. So this is if we could sum what we're doing up in terms of NLP speak, this would be rapid fire, deep level rapport. Right. And here's the thing you understand about rapport. Whether we're talking about energetics, whether we're talking about romance, whether we're talking about negotiation, mediation, networking, therapy, the deeper the rapport, the more things are possible. Energetically, if I want to influence your whole system, the more I can get energetically in rapport with you, the more influence I have over that system, because the system stops thinking of me as something different or separate. And that's where really cool things can happen. So Physiology controls the psychology. We want to move through the world making people feel ridiculously good. The fastest way to change a person's body feelings is to change yours first. So let's play with that first. And there's a fun drill that I'm going to give you guys. When we go out to interact with people, we've got to get our state right. So that's what this little model is about. Controlling your state. Let me give you a little bit of background about where a lot of this material or where I got started. I don't really hide the fact that a lot of the things I learned came from the dating and seduction fields of the early 2000s and things of that nature, because I never wanted to be a therapist. When I was first learning about these kinds of things, there were only 3 things I wanted in life. I wanted to get chicks, kick butt, and be cool. And because I didn't have the answer to any of those questions, I became pretty fanatical about finding ways to solve my problems. And that's why I'm sitting here today, is because I had to sift through a lot of crap, sit through a lot of seminars, read a lot of books, and then test a whole lot of stuff to figure out what actually works. And I don't feel like I have to take a shower after using it. Because there are some things that I studied that I've studied with both very famous teachers and very infamous teachers. And one of the things that happens is people leave an imprint, a psychic imprint, for lack of a better word, on the techniques and the systems that they create. So one of the things that became very, very obvious is that people need to get their body feelings under control before they engage with people. Now, how do we do that? Posture and breathing. How many people here have ever heard of a woman by the name of Amy Cuddy? Okay, your first homework assignment is to go to YouTube, TED Talks, find power poses by Amy Cuddy. It's an amazing talk. Professor Cuddy is an amazing researcher, and she's actually done the scientific validation of the things I'm going to share with you. Now, in my corner, I was teaching that stuff back in the early 2000s. Her material came out around 2010, 2012. But she's done the hard science. So here's what it is. If you take any particular physiology, assuming you know what that physiology is or what it unlocks, and you hold it for at least 2 minutes, the hormonal balance and your psycho-emotional states will change to the point where you can actually calibrate it through a blood test. Like if I take a basic victory pose, when people, even blind people, when they win, they go, it's just hardwired into us, right? If I take this pose and I hold it for as little as 2 minutes, it's going to cause a chain reaction in my system that changes my hormonal balance, it changes my body feelings, and because of that, it's going to activate something in your body known as a reticular activating system. Sure.
Harvard did a study about that.
Yeah. Okay. The reticular activating system, or RAS for short, is a part of your neurology that controls what you pay attention to and the meanings you assign to it. So if I go into a room and I'm feeling great, I'm feeling victorious, I'm feeling powerful, if there are 8 things in that room that are negative and 2 things in that room that are positive, because I enter that room in a positive, triumphant, victorious state, guess what I'm going to psychologically and attentionally orient on first? The positives. So if I can tap into that state, everything about my consciousness changes. Now, how does this apply to dating? Most people, and when we're talking about dating or approaching for that, and we'll talk a little bit about the dynamics of that, both genders want to be approached, but they have different hangups and different fears about the approach. Men are terrified of getting rejected, right? When they see an attractive woman, they're like, you can feel them psyching themselves up. I'm the greatest lover in the world. 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 And then they go to make the approach like, she's not interested anyway, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she-
Okay. Takes you by surprise, throws you out, it's outside your map, right?
Yeah, you chose right to wear that thing that you thought you had to like dress and
Hmm.
obviously that.
That you're old school, right? But we'll fix that. So now, why does it become that way? It's because even though the guy's in the corner consciously trying to build up his energy, the reason he has to build up that energy in the first is because he's been running shitty movies for the past 20 minutes before that of all the times he got rejected, made fun of, emasculated, right? All the things that he's running, he's screwing up. He's running movies that's changing his body feelings, which change his posture. And now he's running on pure willpower. And then he gets within proximity. Beautiful women have a tendency to knock us off our game anyway. You just automatically throw us into less than resourceful states unless you've been doing it a long time. Now, women want to be approached, but they've been sold a bill of goods too. You see, in certain, and again, this may be different with some of the younger generations. So please, for everything I give you, you can find an exception. We're not here to talk about exceptions. We're here to talk about generalized templates that we can apply, overlearn, and then we have the bandwidth to focus on the things that are different. Women, two gaps in their socialization. One is they're taught many times to use body language that doesn't signal to the person that they're attracted to that they're attracted to them. Maybe you remember, maybe you were taught this, maybe you weren't. Were you taught, and I don't know, I'm just asking, that if you're attracted to a guy or a girl, don't make eye contact with them?
I'm not sure that I was like that, but every time I had the guy, they said, yeah, I don't.
Okay, but I bet you don't have. But I bet you don't have. I bet you don't have trouble making contact with a guy you're not attracted to. Boom. There's the first one. You got to flip the script on that. Okay. If there's somebody you're not attracted to, don't make eye contact. The studies are there. The longer you have eye contact with someone, the more attractive they become. I'll pull up a book on Amazon, but they've done studies at different universities with they're back in the like 90s and early 2000s, they would literally have eye gazing parties where people get together and they would just stare into each other's eyes for like an hour. It's kind of creepy if you ask me, but these are the things that we need to understand. So the first thing when it comes to approach and attractability is you make eye contact with the people you are attracted to and avoid eye contact with the people you're not. But we're not taught that. And so the default many times creates the inverse of what we're going for, right? Many women also, when it comes to being approached, they get nervous about the approach, not because they don't want you to approach, but because they're afraid that you won't leave. Because what happens is a lot of times guys are so focused on trying to get with somebody, women's sending off all kinds of subtle cues. Go away, this not detour this way, not interested, right? Now every woman in the place watching that interaction knows she's not having it. But every guy in the place is going, oh, he's doing so good. Why? Because you have different sorting mechanisms. Women, as a byproduct of their evolution, have developed this amazingly powerful social radar, right? You can have a single guy standing in a group of women talking, and at some unbeknownst moment, every woman in the group knows the conversation is over, and they're gone. And our hapless hero is like, shit, I'm alone. How did that happen, right? So one of the things that we as men have to do is we have to train to get up to what women are aware of naturally. Now, because of the degree of subtlety in their perceptual rate, I'm not here to be pro-women or anti-men or anti-men and pro-women. We need to understand the differences about and the way the world is so that we can make it what we want it to be. One of the other big problems is there's a gap in many women's socialization, and I think it's probably gotten worse now after the hashtag Me Too movements and everything else. Men are so worried about stepping on a landmine that they won't approach at all. So what happens is the people who wind up making approaches are the jerks and the sociopaths. the people who don't care about your boundaries, which again is not your fault. You've been sold a bill of goods in terms of positive social skills and positive body language of attraction. You see, the challenge is that because of the kind of body language, and I should put this caveat out there, the body language of shyness mirrors the body language of aloofness, which is equivalent to being a snob. And because human beings have an inherent negativity bias, in other words, if one good thing happens, my nervous system assigns a gravity of 1. If one bad thing happens, my nervous system assigns a gravity of 4. Power of Bad by Roy Baumeister. Go check it out. I'm going to give you a very long reading list. Now, why is that important to dating or flirting or whatever? A, because of the inherent negativity bias of the human nervous system, if somebody's in a bad mood, they automatically see you through that filter. It's just something you're going to have to be aware of, so you know how to manage it. Right? So we're going to talk about something very shortly called positive eye contact. Certain body language cues that as you're moving through the world, you can sort for or initiate that lets you know where a person's at in terms of willingness to interact, right? So we'll put a pin in that for right now. But one of the things that women have to learn how to do is, so a lot of times if they don't make eye contact or the person comes up and you just blow smoke in their face or something like that, they go away. But sometimes when they're in an interaction, about halfway through that interaction, woman realizes this isn't happening. This is not an interaction, but she doesn't know how to get out of it. Why? Because more often than not, she's given all the subtle cues that every woman in the place would pick up on. But our hapless hero, who doesn't have the same social sensitivity, doesn't perceive them. If he knew she didn't want to talk, he would leave. But he doesn't perceive it, so he thinks he's doing okay because he hasn't been kicked in the nuts yet, metaphorically or literally speaking. So at the beginning, women know how to handle that interaction. Then a lot of women, when they get to the midway through the interaction, when they realize it's not going to go anywhere, there's a piece missing from their extraction process. They don't know how to extricate themselves from the interaction without lapsing into bitch mode. Or preserving the guy. So you've ever had it, you're talking to a woman, you're thinking, and all of a sudden she just becomes the ice queen, right? Why? Because you missed all the subtle cues that she was sending out. She didn't have anything left in the gun except bitch mode. It wasn't your fault, except it was, because you didn't pick it up. Ladies, it wasn't your fault because you're both moving through the world. Remember I talked about checklists? Each of you has a checklist that determines how you know what you're getting is good or not good. How many have ever heard of the psychological phenomenon known as projection? Okay. Projection says if I'm angry or somebody hurts somebody me, I'm gonna project it onto you and make you the perpetrator. Each and every one of you is moving through the world with a little checklist. And you're projecting that out into the world. And you're making the assumption that everyone you meet has the exact same checklist. And when the things they do, because we're all operating from our own checklists. When the things they do from their checklist don't match the things from your checklist, you either don't recognize it or it pisses you off because you interpret it differently. Right? So we need to learn how to elicit and understand other people's checklists. Now, there's some very simple ways to do that, but you need to understand that if you're going to start playing in these waters, the onus to change, to do something different, has to be on you. You've got to do something different to get a different result, and it takes energy to do that. So let's play a little bit. Everybody stand up. Where did Moss go? What are you doing out there? Okay, well, I need you monitoring the Zoom room, please. Okay, so I want you to close your eyes. Think of a time in your life when you were having the best time ever, best playtime ever. I don't care what it was. I don't care who you were with, how many rules you're breaking, whether you passed curfew or not. I don't care. I want you to remember the fun you were having. I want you to remember how you were standing in that moment. I want you to remember how you were breathing in that moment. I want you to see what you were seeing, hear what you were hearing, smell and taste what you were smelling and tasting. Let those feelings come flooding back. I want you to really remember the way, if you were standing, stand the way you were standing in that moment. Breathe the way you were, yes, exactly. Breathe the way you were breathing. Now, without changing a single thing about the way you're standing, without changing a single thing about the way you're breathing, as an act of will, try to feel bad. It's a lot. You got to actually work hard to do it. It's hard, right? Because your physiology is stronger than your psychology. So the first thing we want to do, you can stop playing now, you have a seat. Now this works the other way too. In a lot of our classes, what I'll do is I'll have you go into the positive side and then try to feel bad. And then a lot of times I'll have you do is I'll have you go back to a less than positive time, go into that body language, and then try to summon up your willpower and try to feel good. For the sake of time, most people can't do it. But the simple fact is, if you want people to feel good around you, you have to change their body feelings. The fastest way to change another person's body feelings is to change yours first. Okay. Now, in my other classes like hidden laws of attraction, manifestation, things of that nature, this becomes even more important because the vibrational frequency that you're sending out to the universe is the sum total of your body feelings. And so if I can change your body feelings, I change your vibrational signature, and I change what the universe draws to me. Now, in a social interaction, it's also true. If there's somebody I want to approach, I can approach them in a nervous state, a playful state, a curious state, oh, she's going to reject me state, or he's going to reject me state. Which one do you want to be in? So the first thing that has to happen is you have to control your emotional state. That state, for most applications, negotiation, dating, voir dire, is actually playful. The more playful you can be, the more powerful you become. Because when you're playful, when you're relaxed and easygoing, when you're just looking for the fun, it neutralizes and it slips under people's defense mechanisms. When a man approaches a woman in most social interactions, some level of nervousness tends to come up, either because she feels the sexual vibe or possibility of one, or there's a big, strong human coming at them that they're probably not physically capable of handling. There's exceptions to every rule. These are the things that again, are just part of the everyday life of a human being of either gender. So we need to understand these things and find ways to buffer them. Okay. So one of the things we want to do is we want to start practicing positive, happy states. We want to find the fun in everything we do. How many of you would like to be up to 31% better at everything? Okay. Here's all you got to do. Be playful. Now, that particular statistic comes from a guy named Chris Voss. How many people here know who Chris Voss is or was? Chris Voss was the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. And Voss says when the hostage negotiator approached the bad guy, the hostage taker, with a playful, relaxed, easygoing attitude, he was up to 31% more aware, flexible, adaptable, smarter, and his counterpart, the hostage taker, was up to 31% more compliant. What if you could up your hit rate by 31%? Would that change things for you? That's level one, right? Now, when you do that, your proprioceptive neurology, your mirror neurons, are going to interact with the mirror neurons of everyone around you. That's going to cause a chain reaction in them. You ever hear the expression emotions are contagious? Okay. If you can generate a strong enough emotional state and embody it, it will actually infect everyone around you, And then they will start to feel that way, and they'll think it was their idea. But who are they looking at when those feelings hit? They're looking at you. Guess who gets linked to those feelings? And here's the thing, it's completely ethical, and you can't get caught. What someone's going, oh, you're just making me feel good. Right? I see what you're doing. You're feeling good, so I'll feel good. Yes. Right? So again, now, obviously from a qualitative perspective, this is important. From a strategic perspective, we want people to think and feel good, right? So we have to think and feel good about us. Does that make sense? Okay, let me just check in with my Zoomers really quick. Questions from our folks at home?
So we have. There we go. No avoid feedback. So questions from Zoom. Someone wants a deeper dive into 3 magic questions. We have
Obviously not a new person to Planet David.
Indeed.
But it is on the to-do list.
Someone actually called in about that too today.
Okay. Yeah, we're going there for sure.
Another person, I am a relationship coach and I am an relationship coach and love to be able to help my clients to become more free in their dating game.
Okay.
Another person, how long to flirt before walking away. We have another, learn to mask echo technique perfectly. So I want to ask why I summarize what they're saying. Another person, how to stay flirty to keep my marriage interesting.
Okay.
The same person with the relationship coach, learning to make people feel good for no reason. I love that. And then we have another individual. Hi, David. Is it okay for a girl to know your true?
Okay, don't overwhelm me with questions. Moss tends to just drone on until you're finally looking at him going, I love you, Moss. Make it stop. Make it stop. You had a question. Yes. In fact, if you go to heartmath.org, they used to have a free ebook that you could download. If they still offer it, go to chapter 6. They literally strapped up a dog and his boy and sent him out in the yard to play, and within 15 minutes, their heartbeats synchronized. They did the same thing with horses. So this is not something that is just a suggestion thing. Trust me, I know a lot about suggestion, but there's a lot of parts of us that are constantly taking in information that are driving our bus. They're steering our perceptions, right? So I want you guys in your personal practice to start working on ways to get in and out of certain emotional states and be able to trigger those on demand at will. Now, in our CPI classes, our killer influence classes, our vibrational influence classes, we devote a whole day to that, where you're literally sending emotions back and forth, making people sway. And that's this. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I noticed in a lot of my interactions with people, I tend to be more.
Mm-hmm.
So people say, oh, no, I feel so calm when I'm with you.
Let's go ahead and get on microphone so the people at home can hear us. Is this thing on? There we go.
So I tend to have a positive effect on other people, but being an empath, I tend to also
You get overwhelmed.
absorb
Yes.
other people. And so I was just wondering if you're going to talk about how do you also disconnect so that you're not, right?
Okay.
taking away.
So I'll just give you a real quick one. When you are interacting with somebody and you get their feelings, where do you feel it? Usually down here. Okay.
Like from here to here.
Okay. So what happens in a lot of times with people who are highly empathic is these centers are very open. So what you want to do is imagine pulling in all of that energy, moving it down into just below your belly button inside of you. What happens is when you pull that energy down, though, it's like turning the dimmer switch down on that awareness. Okay. The other thing you can do when you start to sense other people's feelings and emotions is ask yourself a very simple question. Is this mine? Just the act of asking the question creates a separation, which allows you to let it be theirs. Because if you don't ask that question, whatever you sense becomes yours. Right. So in the medical Qigong that I study, when we're dipping into people's bodies right? Well, a lot of times will trigger an emotion, right? And the moment I feel it, I got to go and breathe it out or grab it and pull it out, because if I say, oh, I'm feeling X, now it's mine. Your body just accepts it. So there's different ways to handle that. But as you're dipping in and you're feeling, again, this is not the medical Qigong or Qigong workshop. I do those. But that's, again, when you say, I'm feeling this way, or that's, why do I feel this way? It actually kind of make it kind of yours. So the first thing you can do is ask, is this mine? Another question you can ask, and this is one of the amazing things about your nervous system, is that the quality of your life experience changes by the quality of the questions that you ask. So when you feel a sensation in your body, aside from the question, is this mine or somebody else's, what else could this be? So if I get a feeling that I interpret as fear or anxiety, first thing I want to do when I become aware of that feel is, what else could this be? Just the act of asking that question separates the label from the sensation and gives you the opportunity to label it something else, which your nervous system will now attach different meanings to, and you'll access a different set of memories. Now, if you want to get the neuroscience behind that, How Emotions Are Made by Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett. It's a theory of constructed emotions. Okay, like I said, there's redonkulous amounts of neuroscience behind it, but you don't need to know all that to do it. All you really need to do is know what you want, know how you're going to measure it, which we're going to get into very shortly. Get in the right psycho-emotional state by using your physiology and your breathing first. And that was the whole purpose of that first drill. I didn't forget you, Zoomers, just bear with me, okay? When I'm going to approach someone or when I'm going to get into an interaction, if I'm going in there serious, nervous, afraid, that's what they're going to pick up, right? If you can't quite get it all under control, the next best thing you can do is lead with it. So you might say, Cindy, I'm really excited to meet you. Pardon me, I'm just a little bit nervous. Now, what happened when I said, pardon me, I'm just a little bit nervous? Exactly. See, it takes tremendous strength to admit you're afraid. And so it changes how you interpret what I'm doing. I had a friend of mine back in when I was first really again, the things I'm teaching you, I